Chapter 30, One Night in January. Andrew McClements tore at the Amazon packaging surrounding his parcel and sniggered a little bit when he saw what was inside. But when he heard the door open behind him, he quickly shoved the package into his desk drawer. Nothing to see here. It was one of the other team leaders, Jeff. "I'm heading off now," he said. "You'll be all right." "I'll be fine," replied Andrew confidently. It was the 29th of January 2016, and by now he was an old hand at running the night shift on his own, if not quite an old-timer. "Have you seen Felix, by the way?" he asked, keeping his voice light, as though he wasn't all that interested. "Not since I sent her packing earlier," Jeff replied curtly. "But you know what that cat is like. She'll be back." He looked rather gloomy at the idea. "Night, then." "Night, Jeff." Andrew waited until he was gone, then checked on the package in his desk drawer once again. He couldn't wait for this night shift to begin. A few hours later, in the early hours of the 30th of January, Andrew once again rolled open his drawer and pulled out the brown cardboard packaging. Felix was sitting on the desk with him, and she sniffed with interest at the unfamiliar smells carried on the package which had travelled through the mail. "Guess what, Felix?" Andrew said to her brightly. "This is for you." Her head jerked upwards and she fixed him with those big green eyes. "For me?" they seemed to say. Andrew reached a hand inside the package and pulled out a tiny, pet-sized, yellow high-vis vest, just like those worn by the human members of the team on the platforms of Huddersfield Station. But this one was especially for Felix. The fluffy cat bent her head to the luminous fabric and examined it quizzically. It had long been apparent to the team that Felix recognised their bright jackets now. She was getting one of her very own. Andrew had told no one that he'd ordered it. It was a surprise for them all, and he'd kept it completely secret, even after the vest had arrived, as he wasn't quite sure how Felix would react to it. She could be a diva after all. She'd never worn any sort of clothing before, and Angie Hunt had told him that, although Felix looked absolutely fabulous in her purple glittery collar and wore it quite happily once it was on, she could be a little madam when the team or the groomers tried to get it on or off her. He feared that the temperamental terror might well throw a strop when asked to model her new uniform, so Andrew wanted to introduce Felix to it privately, to give her time to get used to it. He wasn't sure quite how much convincing she might need to wear it. But Felix seemed delighted with his gift as she gave it a thorough investigation, twitching her enormously long white whiskers. The jacket lay flat upon the desk, its two high-vis stripes catching the office light from time to time, as she sniffed at it and prodded it with a curious paw. It wasn't made specifically for cats, but pets in general. It had an adjustable Velcro strap so that dogs, cats, and all sorts of creatures could wear it safely. Ordering it had been Andrew's idea alone, as he'd settled into Huddersfield Station over the passing months. He'd come to realise just how much Felix was an essential part of the team. She was very much considered a member of the team, and he knew from his own personal experiences with her what a very special contribution she made to the station. But even though she spent hours and hours of her life out on the platforms with her human colleagues, patrolling or sitting up at the customer information desk, she wasn't properly equipped for the job. How was it fair, when she did her duty so diligently, that she didn't have her own uniform? If she truly was a member of staff, which she undoubtedly was, Andrew thought she deserved her own high-vis vest, just like her colleagues. He had searched online and found one easily. With a click of a button, Felix's high-vis vest was on its way. The cat finished her sensory exploration of the jacket and sat down on her hind legs, looking pleased as Punch. Her right ear twitched backwards as she heard Andrew rustling the second package. "More?" her fluffy face seemed to say. "For me?" There was more. Much more, for the team at Huddersfield didn't only wear yellow high-vis vests as they went about their work, they wore company-issued name tags showing their job titles. These were official Trans-Pennine Express ID badges that came direct from head office. In Andrew's opinion, it was rather unfair that Felix had to work without one. So in secret, he had emailed headquarters at Bridgewater House in Manchester. "Can we have a name badge for Felix, please?" he'd written, and waited with bated breath for their response. Well, they thought he was nuts, absolutely nuts, but they agreed to make one anyway. Andrew had been delighted with it when it arrived. It was exactly like the formal badges he and Angie and the other team members wore, totally proper. A silver metal badge with a smooth white front and a safety pin on the back. Felix's name was written in clear black letters in the middle of it, while the formal Trans-Pennine Express logo was positioned artfully in the top right corner. It looked even more splendid than Andrew had imagined. "All right, we'll do it," HQ had emailed him. "What job title do you want on it?" Now, forget to be or not to be. That was the question. From what Andrew had observed, Felix did way more customer service work than actual mouse catching. So should her badge reflect that massive contribution she made every day to the commuters and customers of Huddersfield? But no, it didn't seem quite right to give her the same job title as everyone else. Felix, as befitted her feline form, was ordinarily termed the pest controller by colleagues. It was what she had been called by the team ever since Angie had filled in her very first disbursement form for Felix's food. Pest controller needs nourishment. It was a long-standing joke. Yet that didn't seem quite right either. Pest controller seemed a bit too ordinary for Queen Felix. The cat clearly thought she ran the station, and according to the hierarchy chart that had hung in the office for many years, she did. Pest controller didn't recognise her many years of experience, for she now outranked in years of service many of the newer members of the team. After all, she'd been there longer than Chris Bamford and Andrew himself. She needed a job title which rewarded that service and her extensive expertise, and which also recognised her own regal sense of superiority over the station. What could it be? As Andrew pulled the metal badge from the package and formally presented it to Felix, there were 3 neatly typed words written below her name. Senior Pest Controller. Felix had been promoted. Andrew felt rather too self-conscious to say congratulations as he handed it over, but Felix looked thrilled nonetheless. She sniffed enthusiastically at the badge to begin with, though admittedly her eagerness soon faded once she realised it wasn't a badge-shaped treat. Andrew took the badge back from her curious twitching whiskers and securely fastened it to the chest of the high-vis vest. "So, how about it then, Felix?" he asked her. "Shall we give this a go?" The cat inclined her head against his proffered hand. He gave her ears a good scratch to encourage her, and then picked up the station cat's new uniform. "I'm going to put it on you now," he told her, like a practice dresser working backstage at the New York Ballet, reassuring his charge during a quick change. He opened up the jacket and placed it across Felix's fluffy black back. She looked up at him inquiringly as he did so, as though to say, "What are you doing?" The jacket had 2 Velcro straps, one for under the belly and one for around the chest. As Andrew fastened them, he chatted away in a friendly fashion to Felix, stroking and reassuring her. But in truth, she didn't seem to need it. She appeared curious more than anything else, and once it was on, she didn't mind it at all. In fact, she seemed quite happy. Released from Andrew's hands, the railway cat promptly had a walk about the desk wearing her brand new uniform, rather as we humans do when we're trying on new shoes. "Well, don't you look smart," said Andrew proudly. And she did. The luminous jacket glowed brightly against her dark fur, while the neat fastening around her chest made her look somehow pulled in and puffed up like a proud peacock. Her long white whiskers skated along the edge of the jacket, and as Felix put her best foot forward on the desk, she looked as well turned out as any child might on their very first day of school. Felix seemed to enjoy her new official get-up. In pride of place on the left-hand side of her chest was her name badge, bearing her new job title. Andrew didn't want to miss the opportunity to record this momentous milestone in Felix's career, so while she happily strutted about on the desk, he slipped out of his chair and started taking pictures. Snap! Felix prowling past the blank screen of a computer. Snap! Felix pausing on the edge of the desk as though conducting a shoot on a cliff top, her fur blowing in the breeze. She stared expertly into the middle distance as Andrew moved and clicked around her. He took shot after shot. She looked brilliant. He couldn't believe how well it had all come together. For about 5 minutes, Andrew and Felix were hard at work on their modelling shoot. Andrew took as many photos as he could, trying to get the best one possible. It was about 4 a.m. and the rest of the station was completely deserted and still, except for this hive of activity in the team leader's office. The perfect shot came when Andrew was crouched down awkwardly and looking up at the senior pest controller from below as she posed nobly on the end of the desk. Taking the shot from below somehow emphasised her stature now, and she was a senior member of the staff. He glanced at his smartphone after he had taken it. That was a great photo. Felix looked so professional. Her smart new name badge was clearly visible in shot, as was the vest. Most importantly of all, Felix's face was a picture. She wore a very serious expression, as though she were about to head out onto the platforms right that minute and begin her diligent duty. She had one paw slightly forwards, taking a step, ready, as always, for action. "You look great, Felix," Andrew said with feeling. Gently, he eased her out of the outfit and tucked it away in his drawer again. Felix shook her fur, for it had been flattened a bit by the jacket, and she needed to puff it out again for the Golden Girl glamour puss look that she favoured. Then she jumped down off the desk and wandered away, thinking no more of it. But Andrew's work wasn't yet done. Chuckling a bit to himself, he went through the pictures and pulled out that money shot. He attached it to an email addressed to all the team at Huddersfield Station and wrote in jest, date 30th of the 1st, 2016, time 4:42, subject Felix's new uniform. Hi all, below are some pictures of Felix in her new uniform. Please make sure this is worn at all times, regardless of any injuries you may sustain when attempting to dress her. Of course, Felix was never actually going to wear the uniform on duty. She was too much of a diva for that. It was all part of the joke. But the real joke was going to be that picture. His colleagues had known nothing of his plan to get Felix a high-vis vest, let alone an official name badge too, and Andrew couldn't wait for their reaction. If it was anything like his own, this was going to go down brilliantly. And it did. All that day throughout Huddersfield Station, there were guffaws and giggles as team members opened up the email and saw Felix kitted out in a brand new uniform. "I thought it was brilliant," exclaimed Angie. "Super, wonderful." Everyone thought it was really cute and a lot of fun. Andrew also got quite a few cheeky emails back telling him he was mad because of what he'd done and the lengths to which he'd gone to do it. Absolutely mad. And there was another email that came through too, from a colleague asking if he'd mind if they sent the image to Mark Allen for him to upload to Felix's Facebook page. Felix's popularity on Facebook had been steadily growing. Only the day before, 29th of January 2016, she'd hit a new milestone, 1,000 likes on Facebook. Mark and the team members helping him with the page had started adding videos as well as photographs to the site, and that had perhaps encouraged more people to start following the feline. The railway cat had spent Christmas with Glenn and Teresa that year. They'd gone to town buying Felix her own stocking full of cat-friendly presents and treats, and they'd uploaded a festive video of her playing with a bauble on their tree, tapping it repeatedly with her paw in transfixed fascination. Things like that enamoured Felix to her growing legion of Facebook fans, and the team involved with the page thought that Andrew's image of the station cat in a high-vis vest and name badge would go down a real treat. Yeah, sure, Andrew said casually when they asked him. No problem at all. At 5:54 p.m. on the 30th of January 2016, Felix changed her profile picture on Facebook to the high-vis vest shot. No one at the station knew it, but life would never be the same again. Chapter 31, Felix is famous. Andrew McClements was walking into the station concourse for his shift when he noticed a couple of the gate line team nudging each other as they looked at him. Andrew, they called out, that picture of Felix is gathering some steam online. Yeah, Andrew thought sarcastically, of course it is. He knew the Facebook page had got a few more likes since the profile picture had been changed a couple of days afterwards. Felix had been up to 1,266 fans, which Andrew assumed must be what the team were referring to. He supposed it was pretty special. It had taken Felix 7 months to reach 1,000 likes, so to get a quarter of that in just a few days was great. The ever-loyal Huddersfield Examiner had run a piece on Felix's promotion. Felix, the Huddersfield station cat, gets a promotion, read the headline, and even the online website, Mashable, had run a story on it. I'm famous, posted Felix jokingly on Facebook as she shared the link. But whether all that counted as gathering steam, Andrew doubted. He headed into the team leader's office and sat down, his mind running over all the tasks ahead of him that day. Working at the station was a relentless job in many ways. The services ran in, day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No wonder Felix took so many cat naps. Just then, his work phone rang. Hello, he answered. Andrew McClements? That's right. I'm ringing from head office at Bridgewater House. I work in the communications department, said the caller. I'll cut straight to the point. What's going on with that cat of yours? They must have heard about the Examiner article, Andrew thought. I didn't realise you would have heard about this, he said in confusion, slightly unsure as to why the communications department for the whole of TransPennine Express was getting involved with such a local piece of PR. He heard a laugh down the telephone. I think you should check Facebook, said the caller. Andrew drew his keyboard towards him and tapped out a few commands. Up came the familiar blue branding of the social media site. As Andrew entered his login details, he still felt puzzled. Surely this wasn't big enough for head office's involvement. Then he saw it. On the menu at the side of the page, listing the top trending news items, he spotted a familiar fluffy black face. Huddersfield, UK. Cat gets promoted to senior pest controller, read the associated link. It was right at the top of the list, the #1 trending item on Facebook. Reeling in amazement, Andrew clicked on the link. A second page opened up with an awful lot of links to an awful lot of news outlets. Felix was famous, and the media wanted more. The phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. The Daily Mail wanted a quote. They would be sending a photographer. National newspaper after national newspaper dialed the Huddersfield station number, and soon the broadcast media jumped on the bandwagon too. It all felt a little out of control, but Andrew hadn't been put in the position of team leader for nothing. He hoped if the station and TPE could respond to this quickly enough, that it would be a real opportunity for Felix. If he could give the media what they needed, then he felt that he could work with them rather than everyone being swept away in this unexpected maelstrom of media attention. Although this sort of thing was completely out of his comfort zone, he stepped up to the plate to address the avalanche of incoming reporters, all desperate for information on the now nationally famous station cat. Assisting him in dealing with the media were Chris Bamford on the gate line and Andy Crugan, the man who had been so closely involved in bringing Felix to the station in the first place, and who had just been appointed as Huddersfield station manager following Will's departure in January. They were just in time. Even as the trio started giving interviews and quotes to a sea of reporters on the phone, things started snowballing online. The Mashable article was shared nearly 3,000 times. Felix went up to 4,000 fans on Facebook, then 10,000, then 20,000. Mark Allen watched the rising numbers with astonishment and learned to turn his email notifications off pretty damn quick. After the Daily Mail article was published, it was shared nearly 30,000 times, which brought even more likes to the Facebook page. It was totally unbelievable. None of them had ever seen anything like it. And then Andrew got a call from ITV, national TV. Although Andrew and the others were nervous about the media attention, the cat at the centre of it all seemed unperturbed. As one of her colleagues told BuzzFeed, well, the fame hasn't quite gone to her head. As with most cats, they already think the world revolves around them. As the station started filling up with cameramen and photographers and journalists jumping off the train from London via Wakefield Westgate, many team members found themselves doing peculiar limbo movements in order to stay out of shot. They might work with the suddenly famous station cat, but that didn't mean they wanted to become famous themselves. But for Chris and Andrew, who had agreed to do the ITV interview together, there was no choice but to appear in front of the cameras. Let's split it between us, Chris had said to his colleague as they nervously waited for the camera crew to turn up. If we do that, we've got each other's backs. But even with that reassurance, Andrew still felt apprehensive as he went to collect Felix for her big moment in front of the TV cameras. Although Chris and Andrew would be the ones doing the speaking, they didn't kid themselves. It was Felix everybody was here to see. She was hanging about the office, not up to much, totally unaware of her impending media stardom. The ITV people are here, Felix, Andrew told her shakily. He knew she couldn't understand the words, but he was speaking to calm himself as much as her. He opened his drawer and pulled out the high-vis vest with Felix's name badge pinned on it. All the media wanted Felix to be wearing her uniform. In shot, she just looked so cute in it. Time to get dressed. Felix stood patiently as he pulled on the little jacket and made sure she looked smart. But then, how could Felix, a railway cat, ever look anything but beautiful? As though picking up on Andrew's tension, however, there was a bit of uncertainty in her eyes as he fastened it around her and then picked her up to carry her outside to face the cameras. Not everyone could pick up Felix. Mrs. Grumpy wouldn't countenance such an intrusion on her personal space from any Tom, Dick or Harry. But Andrew had been watching the master, Dave Chin, at work, and one day he'd decided to try it. Since he and Felix were buddies by then, he'd followed Dave's tips. Be confident, be quick, and she'd turned out to be very comfortable sitting in his arms. That was why it was Andrew who carried her out to meet her admirers. The ITV people had asked him to hold her steady in his arms while he simultaneously spoke to the camera. What a request! As if he didn't have enough to worry about. How did that saying go? Never work with animals or children. Felix was famously Miss Independent. Andrew knew that she would stay in his arms only if she wanted to. He could imagine the drama if she leapt out of his hold and scarpered. the young team leader only hoped that the theatrical diva he knew was inside her would rise to the occasion today and bask in the limelight as she always had. "Come on then, Felix," he said. "Let's do this." Felix blinked back at him. She was facing forwards in his arms, all the better for the cameras to capture those enormous emerald eyes of hers, and her white tipped toes dangled down. Andrew gave her a big firm stroke on her fluffy black head. Did she have any idea what was coming? Together they stepped out of the back office and onto platform 1. There were cameras everywhere. Felix looked with interest at them, and Andrew could tell she was a bit unsure, but they both drew strength from being together. He kept talking to her and stroking her, and she gradually relaxed in his arms as Andrew and Chris answered the questions posed to them. And once she'd relaxed, Felix was able to enjoy the centre stage position she had always relished since her very first day at the station. She was a very comfortable cat, nestled in Andrew's arms in the high-vis vest, and even the clicking of the photographer's cameras, but there were people taking pictures as well as filming, did not bother her. Used both to the noise of the trains and the smartphones of strangers, she didn't even flinch. After the interview section of the filming was over, both photographers and cameramen wanted to capture some footage of Felix running free on the platform. Like a singer mid-set during a stadium show, Felix disappeared back inside at this juncture with her official dresser Andrew in order to take off her jacket. Despite what her growing number of Facebook fans might like to think, Felix didn't actually wear her high-vis when she was running about. The team always took it off before they let her loose. And that's where I'm going to leave it.